I talked a lot about work last time, so maybe I could talk a little bit more about in the family dynamic this time.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Because growing up with so many siblings, it was definitely crazy. But I always like to point out the fact that having so many siblings also, I think, kind of like piqued my curiosity and my creative side. And so a lot of people think that growing up with that many kids, then it is a pretty miserable life. But you do kind of count on your siblings. I say this all the time that I don't really think my parents raised me at all. It was really my older siblings and being able to count on them and receive their help growing up. It made it a much more enjoyable experience, even amongst all the chaos, you know? So it really, um,
It's
it
like you had
wasn't
constant friends around you.
exactly, yeah. And ones that like, they understood me really well because we all had the same upbringing, we're all in that same family dynamic. And so we really, my relationship with my siblings is a lot stronger and closer than I would have ever guessed. And so I think that's one thing that I do appreciate from it. Of course, there's always the harder sides about it. Being my parents, my relationship with my parents is very much like, some police officer type of thing where they just watch over you and make sure you're not doing anything bad. And anytime I ever would talk with my dad, it was always when I was in trouble and things like that. So the relationship there is very harsh, I would say. And it's,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't get kind of that emotional connection for sure. So it is a little bit different, but
So everybody's
um,
asking how many siblings you have.
so altogether there's 32. My mom, though, the second wife, she had 10 herself, and then 32 with from the other. Three. I have three moms, so three different wives in the family.
And
But
32 siblings. That's great. Do you know how many boys and how many girls?
it's actually pretty dang close to 50-50. There's slightly more boys. So my family, so the second wife, exactly half. There's five boys, five girls, right?
Okay.
The first wife, let's see, man,
I
there's a
know, right?
lot, but
Totally putting you on the spot. You're like,
yeah, there's slightly more boys for sure than girls, but yeah,
So
still a
how
decent
old is
mix
your
though.
oldest sibling?
My oldest sibling, oh my gosh, I haven't seen them in years or talked to them. I just know that he was, what was he? Almost 10 years older than me, I want to say. Let me think about
Okay.
this though. So the oldest sibling would be about 35, I believe,
And
right
how old's
now.
your youngest?
The youngest just turned 10, I think,
Oh my
9 or
goodness.
10. So.
And we talked about this the other night, but do you know how many of your siblings escaped?
Let's see. There's four, five, six, seven, eight. Eight people. Eight of
Eight
them
out
live
of
left.
32.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there's obviously quite a few that are too young to even think about leaving yet, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep.
And you all had your own separate homes.
Yeah. So my there was three homes. Sometimes we lived decently close, and like we would always like go to each other's houses and stuff. But really, it just changed over time. We moved quite a bit, which I don't really know why, but we moved a lot growing up for some reason. So.
So with your siblings, like with having 32 siblings, how did you do holidays and stuff? Like, did you do it in your own homes or did you combine? Like, how
No,
did
it
your
was
dad work it?
always combined. Like Christmas was chaotic, you guys. Like, it
Mm,
was the craziest thing. So much stuff happening. And we would all like sometimes we would switch which house we'd go to, but most of the time it was just whatever house was the biggest, right? And we'd
okay.
all just go there, bring all of our toys, bring all of our food, all of our stuff, and we'd just be there for the holiday. And it was just as a kid, those were fun because with all that chaos, your parents would lose track of you. You could just do whatever you wanted. But as an adult, I can imagine that was just the craziest thing ever.
Did you actually celebrate a regular Christmas?
Yep.
And did you like how did your parents work gifts with having 32 of you? Like did your moms work? Were they able to
Oh yeah, they strongly encourage the women to work all the time. Like
do
they
they?
even like up to when they're pregnant for like 8 months, they'll be like going to work and doing everything they can to provide for the family. Um, it's like they really preach this. You have to make more money than what you're spending. So a lot of the times they'll really push them hard to make sure they're constantly working, make sure they're the ones providing, and then they always do things too because they're obviously not making enough money for all the kids. So they do all these strange things like there's something called the produce run where they would go to places like Smith's or Walmart and get all of their out of date, expired stuff or old produce
Okay.
and use that, right? Because you can get it for almost free sometimes. And
Yeah.
especially like yeah, there were some families that would say they were a donation center type of thing. So they would get it 100% free, even though it was just for their family. But I don't know. It was kind of interesting. But they would find lots of loopholes, find ways to keep us alive without many kids,
Yeah.
basically.
To feed you still. So what happened at Christmas time? Like, how did they do gifts and things?
Well, it varied. Like I think it changed a lot because some years we were doing better off financially.
Okay.
So, we got a lot more stuff. Some years it was very few things. I think my upbringing, I got it a little better off because we were doing a little better financially. But there's been lots of stories that have been told, like with my father's Christmases. There's been some Christmases where all he's gotten for Christmas was an orange, and that was like his whole
Oh.
Christmas and everything.
And
So,
he grew up in this cult, right? And
yep,
your mom
yep.
didn't. Do you want to tell that story about how your mom got involved?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because her older sister, so her family wasn't involved with it at all, but one of her grandparents, like her great grandpa or someone, was a polygamist in like the LDS church or something a long time ago. So they knew somewhat about it, and I think that's why her dad wasn't super like repulsive to it. But her older sister gets married to my dad, and then they live inside of my mom's basement with like their family. And then I think it was roughly 4, 5 years later, then he goes and he takes my mom on just this drive. And my mom's just like, what's my brother-in-law doing, taking me
Yeah.
on this drive? And he's like, well, I had a dream that I'm supposed to marry you, basically. Like, and so he like proposes to her right then and there in the car. And she's just this 16-year-old, just like, what is going on? Like, you're my
Right? You're
brother-in-law.
married to
But
my sister.
exactly. And then she goes home and like the first thing she does is runs to her sister and like, your husband's trying to marry me, And she's like, yeah, that's okay. That's a good thing. And she's just like, what? And at first she was like, did not want anything to do with it. But I guess with enough time, she was like, okay, if this is what God wants me to do,
Oh my
I'll
God.
do it. So,
Do you think
yeah.
she loved your dad eventually?
Me personally, no. But she says oftentimes that she eventually, because they have this saying in the order that it's like, it doesn't matter if you fall in love or if you love each other, you'll have eternity to love each other, to fall in
O-
love, to get to love each other. So they're
Okay.
always like, they don't really care that much for what love might be in the moment. They always say, just work on it. Things will be better in the future, I guess. So
God.
it's
And
interesting.
you said it's the man who can choose, right? Like it's the man will have a dream or a vision or choose his wife and the woman can't say no.
Well, they of course
Oh,
they
thank
they
you.
will never say you can't say no, but it's kind of like, a parent to a kid. Like if you tell your kid no, then it's going to be harder. But if you're like, maybe you can do that, but we really want you to do this, right? So they
Yeah.
do lots of stuff to make like the marriages they want to have happen work out. But of course, there's been times where if girls are persistent enough, or sometimes they have to run away from the group and then go back, and then they'll finally let them marry who they want to marry. So it's
Okay.
like, I guess in the original plan, then you're right. It's just the fathers and the men that get the say, but the woman can fight it. It's just a pain.
Okay. So after the man has a vision or chooses his who he would like and she says yes, then they go to the prophet.
Well, first they have to go to their own parents,
Oh,
and
okay.
as long as their parents also have a confirmation, then they can go to her parents and talk to the parents. And if both parents all agree and feel like it's right, then you get to go to the prophet, and the prophet like is the final say and okays it. Sometimes he'll do blood tests or whatever he's got to do to make sure it can work out right. And
Right.
then after all that, you get to go on a drive with them and propose.
Oh my
So
God. And how long is like, do they court? Like, do they date before they get married, or do they just ask and then get married?
generally, it's very because it's all about repopulating the earth. Having kids is such an urgent, important thing that they teach that there's rare times where people will be engaged for like 2 or 3 months and they almost get shunned for that. They're like, you're gonna get married, just get married next week. Like some engagements are just weeks long, like super
Right.
quick. So
I can't even imagine. That would have been
mhm.
you, Eskel. That would have been you.
Yeah, it would have been
Oh,
crazy.
so back to your family life. So your mom and your aunt are both married to your dad, but your aunt
Mhm.
would be considered your mom now, right?
Mm-hmm.
like one of your
Yep.
moms. And you have three moms, 32
Mm-hmm.
siblings.
Yep.
Like that's great. And you think what how many did you say again that you thought left? Nine?
Eight of them have left so far.
So
So,
eight have left,
mhm.
and
Yep.
like that's just crazy to me. So if you
Hmm.
had like holidays, like birthdays, stuff like that, you said like even birthdays, would you get together?
Most of them, yeah. Of course, birthdays can be on weekdays and stuff. So if you have work and things like, then it would kind of get ignored. But yeah, most things we did, like every Sunday even, we'd get together and have like family meetings and
Okay.
stuff. So like,
Okay.
so we did a lot together for sure.
And would your dad like there was no set schedule you said, so to go from home to home, like which wife he would be with?
Yeah, in general, it was like, every 3 days. Well, like that's what it was supposed to be. But of course, it varied a lot. Mhm.
I can't even imagine. Um,
Yeah.
so your church, like where you went, did you have to go more than just Sunday? Like how was the religious side of it?
Oh yeah, they definitely have a lot. Like it's almost dependent on like how dedicated of a member you are, kind of, because they have the actual church sessions usually on Sunday. They have Sunday school classes, and then they have priesthood meetings, and they even have like weekend, like I don't know what exactly they would be called, but it would be like get-togethers where we'd have dances sometimes, or just like
Okay.
activities or stuff that we'd all do. So, yeah, there was stuff happening almost all the time. So,
And how was your schooling? So we went through this a little bit the other night.
so schooling, I personally think it's very neglected. They basically do the bare minimum so they can't get in legal trouble. Because in Utah, legally from 18 and younger, the kids they have to be in some sort of school system or some certification that they're being taught or going to school. So they have like this homeschool type of setup. They have a little bit of their own little elementary school that they have set up and stuff. And then now they just recently started this high school type of thing that's
Okay.
semi-public high school. They've had all these legal issues about kind of making it private, but it was still getting public funding and stuff. So they do have a lot of different things for that, but it definitely varies.
And then, okay, we got to get into the nitty gritty. So, do you want to talk us through like when you first? Actually, let's talk about how your sisters left first before you even thought about leaving. Like how your first
Hmm.
sister got out, because you had two
Yeah.
older sisters that left first, right?
Yeah, yeah. They left almost at the same time. And the oldest one was because of her marriage. She had to do something similar with kind of like fighting to marry the person that she wanted to, right? And she eventually realized, like, because they got married and she thought she could trust her husband. They had this agreement about like not getting a second wife and stuff, but they would still stay in the group. And a lot of people do this. I talked last time about there's a lot of fence sitters in the group, right? A lot of people don't actually believe in the prophecies, the religion, but they stay because of family and finances. The order has you turn in 100% of what you have. So literally, it's almost like they try to make it very difficult for you to leave if you ever even get to that point. So with all that built up, when she realized that she wanted to divorce her husband, she started expressing that to people and was instantly getting shut down. Like the church gives you no options, no ways to divorce. You always have, because your ticket to heaven is through your husband to them.
Yeah.
So they're like, if you're divorced, you're just getting a fast pass to hell, basically.
Like you're
So
done.
there's no
No
option.
man,
Yeah.
you're done.
So that was really what started her even questioning and looking into leaving. And she was the first one for my family. She like basically paved the way, figured out how to get a job on the outside, what resumes are and things like that. And then my sister right underneath her, she was the one that was expressing herself even in the cult because she was told to marry her cousin. And she was like, I don't want to marry my first cousin. Like, this is
Oh,
crazy. And then she started questioning a lot of the doctrine of the church. And she openly expressed it while she was still going to church. And that's like horrible. Like, that's something nobody does there. It's like super bad. But she did that. And eventually, my parents got so upset with her and told her the whole thing. Like, if you don't believe in our faith and live our way, you can't live here. And so she got kicked out. So then
how
my
old
two
was
oldest
she then,
sisters,
Eskel?
huh?
How old was she?
She was 17 actually, so she wasn't even a
Oh.
full-grown adult.
So they
So she,
actually kicked her out.
yeah, so she got kicked out, and she's the one that literally was taking her bags and walked around the neighborhood and had to knock on doors, to use people's phones. And
Oh my
oh
God.
my gosh, she probably had it the hardest out of everybody, but she
Oh,
eventually figured it out. Like, I'm telling you, I think like there's one thing that everyone from cults have, and it's determination and work ethic. Like, we
yeah.
know how to work really hard because ever since we were 13, we all had jobs, we all were doing stuff that, most kids don't do. And so we know how to figure stuff out, even though we don't understand it. We don't know how the outside world works,
Yeah.
but we just keep trying. We go head first and just go at it till we figure it
It's
out
got to be
and figure it out.
absolutely terrifying because you're told the
Mhm.
outside world is this like scary bad thing. Oh, thanks, Cash. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden you're like tossed into it. Like she's kicked out. Like your sister chose to leave, and then your second sister gets like tossed into it. Did she
Mhm.
go? Like, did she find your other sister when she was kicked out?
Yeah, that was one of the first places she went to, and then that from there they worked together a lot and started helping each other. So
Okay.
it was really nice.
Thank you so much, you guys, for the gifts.
Ooh,
So
wow. Cool.
Brady. So Eskel, talk us through when you finally decided you were going to leave and how that went down.
Okay, so because I saw my older sisters, I knew I was gonna want to get out of there one day. So I got lucky enough to kind of see how hard it was for them. And so I actually started planning things out and preparing. I think I had a good year to like 6 months to a year where I was like, I'm for sure gonna leave. So I started saving money under my bed and doing things to like set up where I was gonna go after I left and just get everything all organized. So I had a good 6 months of saving, and not much. I couldn't save very much because literally I have to get permission every time I take money out of my own bank account with them and stuff like that. So as often as I could, I would save away a little bit of money. And then right before my 18th birthday is when my sister called me up, Amanda, the one that had left already, right?
The
She
first
calls me
one?
up and she says, "Hey, there's this Escaping Polygamy documentary. Like, you've told me that you for sure want to leave and everything. Would you allow them to document this experience so people can kind of see what people have to go through to leave these cults and stuff like
Yeah.
that?" And so at first I was like, no way. I want to just get out of here. Like, I don't
You're
want a
like, I'm
camera shoved in my
terrified.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking, but eventually I said yes because I got to meet some of the producers, and they expressed how they really wanted to be able to help people, help people to leave and to share people's experiences. So I eventually said yes. And that's when I had to really make sure when I did leave, everyone had to be gone. Like, I chose it to do it while they were all at church, and a time when I knew they would have to be out of the house. And that's what I did. They came over and I let them inside the house, and they just kind of filmed and documented all the things I had to get. And they were actually helpful too because they were talking, and they helped my sisters come meet up with me and expressing how
Yeah.
I need to also get important documents. I would have never thought to get, like,
Oh,
my
yeah.
social security, my birth certificate. That all would have been way over my head.
You
But
were a
they explained
kid.
to me I need those for jobs and stuff. So that was very helpful.
So
So
did they show up at your house? Like when you left church, were they just at your house waiting for you?
kind of, they were in the neighborhood waiting on my phone call, basically.
Okay.
So.
So as
Mhm.
soon as you got home, they arrived and you just started grabbing stuff and they're taping you. What time would this have been?
Yep.
It was night,
So
wasn't it?
church is at 10. Church usually goes from like 10 a.m. till about 1. So I think this was at
Oh.
like 10:30 in the morning on a Sunday.
Okay,
So,
okay. And
mhm,
then, oh, so when you had gone back to church, that was after. So you had gotten all your
mhm.
stuff, and then what did you do?
Yeah, right after I got all packed up, I went back to church, right at the end. It was really close to about 1 o'clock, right at the end of church, and I just pretended I was there the whole time to not raise any suspicion. And then, as like my siblings and my mom were getting ready to head back home, I suggested to my mom we should go out to lunch or go somewhere so I could tell them all goodbye. And I had wrapped up these little gifts for each of my siblings because I wanted them to know that, yeah, I am like the one packing my bags and leaving, but it's
Yeah,
only because I can't be who I am
yeah.
there. My dad won't let me have the faith that I want to have. He won't let me believe and live the life that I want to live. So I didn't want them to think I was leaving them. I was abandoning them because I still care about them. I still will do anything I can to help them. But I did have to leave that environment for my own sanity so I could be who I truly am.
And what did they say? What was their reaction like, especially your moms when you sat them down and told them what was happening?
Well, my mom's was harsh, man. She was really sad and she did cry for a bit, but then it's almost like her anger took over. She started putting a lot of this guilt on me and being like, "How do you expect me to put up with all these hard things that this group is making me go through? How am I going to survive financially without having some of the older kids pitch in and stuff like that?" She almost tried to guilt trip me into wanting to stay, which was kind of kind of rude, I feel
Because she
like,
didn't
but
want to be there either, comes to find out, right?
Yeah, she definitely did not like the way she was being treated. Everyone can see that it's very unfair and harsh, especially on the women. So it's not like they necessarily want to be there, but they feel like they're going to get this golden ticket to heaven if they go through all this hardship. So that's oftentimes why they put up with it.
Right. And then, so after you had that conversation with her, what did you do?
Well, after that, why the very first place I went to was my sister's place, and immediately they were all like, "Hey, now let's help you get a job. Let's teach you what a resume is. Let's." And there, it was awesome though because at first I was overwhelmed and scared, but then when they were like, "Have you ever wanted to work anywhere? Like, what's some place you've gone to and just been like, wow, it would be so cool to work here?" And I told them about some of my favorite like clothing stores and like different places at the mall that I really liked and things like
Aw.
that. And they were like, "Okay, let's help you apply to all your favorite places so that your job experience can actually be fun and you can enjoy it." And
Yeah,
it was so exciting to have the freedom to work anywhere, you know? It was awesome.
I love that. So now, so when you went and moved in, it was your older sister that you moved in with?
Yep, my oldest sister.
Was your the next oldest sister, was she living there as well at that time?
They were living together for a long time, but it had been 3 years, I believe. So at this point, then the younger one had moved out and gotten her own place because she had gotten like married and things like that. So,
Okay.
mhm.
So then how long did you stay like with your older sister? So you were with your older sister and then
Mhm.
like did you just live there until you got your feet under you? Or are you
Pretty
still
much. Yeah, because I lived there till I had a job and kind of figured out what I wanted to do and got into college. And then I eventually ended up, because really I was just looking for any options and to try and figure out life in general. So I wanted to experience kind of like leaving the state and trying new places out. So I reached out to one of my distant uncles that weren't associated with the Kingston group at all. And I asked if I could go stay with them in Colorado. And they really
okay.
took me in. I have like they're the ones that I refer to as kind of my adopted family because I went and I lived with them for quite a few years and like I had a really good experience with them and they helped me a lot as well. So yeah,
So
I was
had
able
they
to
escaped
experience
the
that.
cult themselves as well, or were they just on like in another kind
They
of
were never a part of it. Yeah,
okay.
they were related to my mom, but her family wasn't associated until she married
Okay.
into it. You know,
Okay, so it was your
so.
mom's side. Okay, and
Mhm.
then tell us what happened next, because your mom got out as well at one point. How
Yeah,
did that come
so
down?
I think it was the fact, all of her kids leaving, and she's kind of a rule breaker a little bit. She would still talk to us, still try and meet up with us because we're her kids. She's not
Yeah.
just gonna cut us off and disown us like the church teaches you to. And so with her hearing us actually leaving and enjoying getting jobs out here, enjoying figuring out life, and like not just becoming a homeless on the street and just dying, like what they teach is gonna happen,
Yeah.
her seeing that through her own kids kind of got her thinking, I feel like, and she eventually expressed to me and my older sisters that she knows she's being mistreated. She doesn't like it in there, and just asking questions like, "Is there any options for me to leave? Like, would I be able to get a job out there? Would I be able to raise my family out there?" And of course, she can. So we were showing her all of her options and told her that we were happy and willing to help. And eventually, she couldn't take it in the group anymore. So she did leave and did a very similar thing. Like the documentary of Escaping Polygamy reached out to her and said, "Can we film your escape?" And she said that would be fine. And me and all of my older sisters that had already left and had some experience on the outside, we helped. We helped as much as we could. We wanted to be there for them. We were so happy to kind of be reunited with our younger siblings, right?
Yeah.
And
Because
so it
she
was
took
a great
everybody, all
experience.
the kids with her that would go, right?
Yeah, all the ones that she could take with her. Yeah, she took.
And
So,
did she take what she could from the house or did she just flee?
well, she took she had been in the group a long time, right? I think she's been married like what, 30 years or something. So she had a lot of stuff that to me is probably just junk. Like but she had a ton of stuff, so she couldn't take all of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, we had, me and all my siblings had vehicles and we rented a truck and stuff. Like we took what we could, But yeah, we definitely had to leave a lot of stuff behind.
Did she tell your dad she was leaving, or did she just take off?
Yeah, she didn't tell him nothing. In fact, she was so nervous and had the hardest time keeping it a secret from him because, he does weird stuff. Like he'll like track her phone, he'll like go through all of her text messages. Like he is very controlling. So it was extremely hard for her to keep this a secret from him all this time because it took months of planning. Like
Oh,
she
I
like
bet.
we were trying to make sure we could figure this all out and get it all to work. And so for those months, she was scared out of her mind. It was terrifying
I
for
can't even
sure.
imagine. And she didn't even. So the first wife was her sister, so she obviously didn't tell her sister either.
Nope,
And
not at all.
did your aunt did her sister ever try and leave too?
That's a good question. If she did, she would never tell us. So
Yeah.
I have no idea.
So where
But
did your mom go when she came out? Did she come to you guys?
yeah, yeah. So the first place she went to was out in Colorado where we kind of like knew a lot of the people there. We had connections with jobs and things. So and her brother, right? One of the uncles that I had reached out to and was staying with, he was happy to help her as well, and he was already out there. So that was the first place she went to, and she did. She received a lot of help. There was a ton of people that wanted to donate and help the cause. Her brother was there to help her. And yeah, she and me and all my siblings were there to help. I stayed
Yeah.
with her the entire time, like with the family and everything. And then that's when, like, 'cause it was almost 2, maybe 3 months in of her being gone when my dad just showed up at the door randomly, and we were all just freaking out. Like, we don't know exactly how he found us or what, but he, I guess, was hunting her down, and he found her. So.
And what happened when he arrived at the house?
Oh man, there was so much tension in the house because for one, she like, she kept secrets from him for 3 months and then just disappeared. So imagine
Yeah.
from his perspective where he's just going to one of his wife's homes and everything's just gone. And he's like, what the? And he can't get a hold of her, nothing. And then months later, he just shows up at this house being like, hey, what's going on? And from my perspective, all I know is that he came into the house and like he went and talked with her and they were talking till like super late, all night long. And then eventually the next day, she just starts packing her things and getting ready to go back. So it
And
was
did she like,
crazy.
did he drive her back? Did she go with him?
Oh, he did not want to leave her. Like he was like right by her side, being like, "We need to go back. Like I'm saving your soul. I'm keeping your spot in heaven for you. You got to come take your ticket and all."
Oh,
I don't know
that's
exactly what he
so.
said to her, but whatever it was, it convinced her to go back. So,
And all the young
mm,
children went with her?
yep, because they were all minors. Yeah, all the ones that were still minors, they ended up coming back with her because they didn't have much of a choice, sadly.
How many years ago would that have been?
That was, let me think. I've been out for 6 years. She left 2 years after I did, so that would be roughly 4 years ago, I want to say, three or
And
four.
she hasn't tried to leave again?
Um, Not particularly. She's expressed that like, okay, this is probably gonna get her in lots of trouble, but she has said to me and my sisters that like once her kids, she has no kids younger than 18, she feels like she might want to leave again. She just feels too guilty having her own soul to think about, but then the souls of all of the minor kids that she'd be taking with her. She wants
Yeah.
it to be their choice, I guess, or something like that. But yeah.
And you said that you've got siblings that will never leave, and then siblings you think will leave eventually?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's definitely. I personally think a lot of them will end up leaving, but you never know. And there's some that will never leave. Like there was one that even when my mom left, he was a minor, but he was like dedicated. He would not leave, so he went and lived with the one of the other wives, and he never left. And he's married now. He's got a kid. He's doing exactly what the order is telling him to do.
Right.
So.
So let's go through that quickly. So what in the Kingston group or whatever, what were the diehard solid rules you had to follow? Like what was the plan?
Okay, well, I can tell you rule number one was 3 wives. That's the ultimate biggest key to go to the
Three or
top,
more.
yeah, yeah, or more. That's true. Yeah, as long as you had that, then that was one of the biggest keys to get you to the top heaven, the best ideal place, I suppose. But then next to that, they would teach a lot of this chain of command. It was extremely important for being loyal for one, making sure you were obedient and good, but then also to know who you were supposed to be loyal to, because they understand there's lots of people that don't want to be there. So if you're loyal to people that are against the church, then that's not good either. So they teach you
Right.
to be loyal, but then that you have to be loyal to the one above you. So they have the chain of command, right? Like the wives
Right.
tie into the husbands tie into their older brothers, the older brothers tie into their fathers, and the man above them, and things like that, right? So there's this whole chain of command, and it all goes straight to the prophet. So the prophet of the church has say in everything. It can be tiny little details about the family. If it gets all the way up to the prophet, then he gets the say in what the family does. So it's crazy.
And who's the prophet of your group?
It's Paul Kingston.
Paul Kingston. And was he like, since you've been born, was he the prophet there?
Actually, I don't know because I was born right as the change happened. So I don't know exactly, but yeah. So Paul's dad was the prophet before, right?
Okay.
And so he became the prophet
And you
after his
said it's
dad
like a
died.
bloodline thing, like his sons will be the next prophets?
Yeah, yeah. So it's like the kings, like olden times, like with the kings and stuff. It's going to be one of the sons, but what the question is, we don't know which son, because he's
So
got
it's
a
not like
hundred
firstborn?
sons. No, no, they don't care about the age. They don't necessarily keep the whole firstborn thing because Paul was actually one of the younger brothers in his family, but he became the prophet somehow. I don't know how, but he became one of them. So we know it's going to be one of his sons, but we don't know which son it is. And that's where I think there still is going to be a little bit of a fight because every time a leader dies off, then people fight for that leadership role,
Oh,
right?
I bet.
So,
How old would
mhm.
he be?
Who? Paul?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
when he
no.
became the leader, he was pretty young, actually. Everyone was shocked because I don't know the exact age, I didn't look into it, but I know he was younger than a lot of the other men that were like thinking that they were going to be the leader.
They must have
So he
been
was
so
definitely young.
mad.
Hmm.
Oh. So he'd probably be like 50s, 60s?
Right now he's 59 or 60 around there.
Okay. Okay.
That's how old he
So
is right
what
now.
once he's done, there's going to be this big fight, and then someone else will kind
Hmm.
of step in.
Yep, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Jeff just asked, is there inbreeding? So
Oh
basically,
yeah.
yes, I guess, right?
Oh
His
yeah, 100%. There's a
Eskel
lot.
was explaining that his sister was supposed to marry her first cousin. Eskel, talk
Mhm.
about the blood tests.
Yeah, so back in the day when they were keeping it a secret, because it's supposed to be revelation from God, God tells you who to marry, you marry them whether you love them or not, because God said to. But then they realized with all this inbreeding, it's dangerous because they're having kids with all these issues, and it's obvious that being that closely related is going to cause issues. So now they're taking blood tests to like minimize the chances of having issues with being closely related and having kids. So at first they would just be like, oh, we need to do a health check, which is number one, already shocking because they never go to doctors. They never like do much for
Yeah.
that. Like they don't believe in much medication. Like only in extreme cases will they ever like do medical stuff. But this one they did. They would take the blood and tell us that it was just for a health check and things like that. But really they would take it to compare and see who you're compatible with and make sure like I guess it's funny because they weren't checking to see how closely related you are, but they check for something to minimize the chance of if you have children together that you'll have birth defects and stuff like that.
Okay.
So
Oh my, like just and the fact that they have to do that is just like crazy. And do you
because they're
ever have
so
like, are
super.
there women, like can women can't choose outside of the order, but can men?
No. Yeah, yeah, men can because that's called bringing them in to the fold, right? But if a woman, first of all, if a woman tried to do that, they would most likely go to the guy, right, and lead the church. And I've just never heard of a girl trying to marry someone out and bring them in. But even if they could do that, technically they would still say no because the woman's tie is through the man to heaven, right? So
Right,
they want all the women to be married to Kingston people because those
right.
are the ties to heaven to get them into heaven. So,
Is
yeah.
there and ever any crossing between like the different groups, like Warren Jeffs and your group?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
is
Yeah.
there?
If you know of Tom Green, his family, they all were a part of an FLDS, Warren Jeffs branch off. And he ended up bringing his whole family over to the order. He's the one I told you where he had to pay $5,000 to join for each of his family members. And he had like four wives. And when he died, it was interesting. He ended up passing away a year ago or so. And all four of his wives married his like the person he was the closest to in the order, Daniel Jr. And so they all married his like best friend, I guess you could say, or whatever.
Oh my
But
gosh. So they just pass the wives on to somebody else because they need to have
mhm.
that male figure.
Well, and because they need to keep having babies. It's true if the women are so old that they can't have kids anymore, then sometimes their husband will die and they'll never remarry.
Okay.
But if they are capable to have kids still, they always marry someone else. They keep on having
Oh
them
my God.
reproduce. So.
And they're expected just to have babies until their bodies can't have babies anymore, right?
Yep. And as many as they can. Like there are literally people that have like 10 kids, right? And they're all exactly 1 year apart. Like the fastest you can possibly have 10 kids. It's
That's
crazy.
crazy. So were you responsible, like the older kids, for looking after the younger kids, kind of like the Duggar family?
Oh yeah, as soon as I was able to. Like my oldest sister Cami, she was tending, us 4 or 5 kids when she was 9 years old. She would be at home teaching us how to wash the dishes, clean the house for when mom and dad gets home and stuff like that. Like we were all teaching each other stuff from very young.
And so your mom's working, so she's got these young children who can babysit each other and take care of everyone.
Exactly.
Um, Somebody just asked, what happens if a woman can't have babies?
Oh my goodness. It's actually really sad because they put such a high value on women reproducing and having kids that if a woman can't have kids, they almost view them as like they're broken or something,
Yeah.
like they can't fulfill their purpose in life. And it's really sad. There are a few. Oftentimes, though, they end up just either being forgotten about or sometimes they'll end up leaving because they're not appreciated in the group and they're just looked very down upon.
So if they can't have children and they're already married and realize this, will the man leave
Sometimes, or he'll just go get a different wife. Sometimes
and
he'll
still
still
keep
stay.
her? Like just
Yeah,
have
he'll.
more wife. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Um,
and oftentimes they just forget about that girl usually. Like they don't see them as often. They're just very much neglected and forgotten about. It's kind of sad.
and I've seen a lot of people asking, like, what if they're in the LGBTQ community at all? Do they come out? Do they leave? Like, what happens if you all of a sudden realize, like, I'm gay, this is not for me? Like, can they come out? Can they express themselves?
Well, they can, but they are treated very harshly. Like first of all, they're very racist, right? So they're super old-fashioned. Anything to do with LGBTQ, they're extremely against. But they technically have given, church talks about how if you're gay, that's okay, but we need to fix you, is what they'll say. So they'll
Oh,
send you to camps. They have this like therapy stuff that they try to do because they believe 100% that like they can preach the gay out of you or something like that. So they
yeah.
are really hard on anyone that comes out. And it's super rare because they all know that nobody likes it there. So I guarantee you there's a lot of married men that are gay, but they just never say anything and they
Oh, I
just do
bet.
what they gotta
How
do.
could
Yeah.
you? You'd think you wouldn't go to heaven because your wives would leave you, or your husband would
Exactly.
leave you if you were a wife and you were gay. Like it's. Ugh. Do you want to
hmm
start doing some questions?
For sure. Yeah.
I've seen tons of questions, guys. You'll have to re-ask just so Eskel and I can see them. So first one is, why aren't there new episodes of Escaping Polygamy?
Yeah, so that one was simply because the funding stopped with ESPN, I think it was. They basically ran out of funding for it. So they stopped with those producers. And now there's new producers that are getting it started, basically. So it's just a whole different group.
And
But
there's going to be, you had mentioned that there's like a new kind of program or show coming, but you just can't talk about it yet.
well, there's not a title yet. There's not like they don't know who's gonna pick it up. They're kind of pitching the idea to like Netflix, Hulu, all these different places, seeing who would be interested in it. So it is pretty far down the road, but within a year or so, there'll be some new ones coming out, but not called Escaping Polygamy, but it's still going to feature those same people from Escaping Polygamy. So
Oh, that's awesome. Because we got to know everybody. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how they're doing now. And
yeah.
especially after the Duggars documentary has come out, I think it's, everybody's kind of interested in this and giving it, more time now than before. So Emily just asked, what happens if the man is sterile and can't have kids?
Oh, wow. So that's recently been happening more than we've ever seen it in the past. Before, if the guy couldn't have a baby with the girl, they would always blame the woman. They would always assume there's something wrong with the girl. But of
Right.
course, nowadays we can find out who's actually the problem. And recently they found out that there are a few guys that just aren't able to have kids. So they're doing well. First of all, they're being really quiet about it. They don't want people to know because then it makes it harder for those guys to get more wives, and people are like, they don't want to marry someone that can't have kids. But
Right.
there's some of them that are secretly, and I'm not very educated, so I don't know what this is called or anything, but they are secretly, going to the doctors and being, having the egg be put into them, or
Oh,
whatever
yes,
that's called.
IVF
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're doing that in secret because they're not supposed to encourage going to hospitals and things like that. So
Right.
they're secretly doing that because they don't want people to know that they can't have kids. That's their main purpose in life. So they're going and figuring out a way to still have kids,
Yeah.
just trying to keep it all quiet and not let too many people know about it.
Oh, that's such a sin. Eskel, someone just asked if you have any regrets leaving.
Hmm. That's a tough one
Yeah.
because there's some things, if I did it over again, I'd definitely change, for sure. But I would never, like, as crazy as it was leaving or as hard as it can be, I wouldn't change it. I would rather leave in flames and chaos than not leave at all. So that's the big
Yeah.
thing. But if there was one thing I could change for sure, I would have definitely stirred my ground more. I don't know why I was so timid in the group and so, like, I felt like I had to pretend like I loved the church, and I would pretend I was such an advocate for it and
Yeah.
not question things, not let them know that I was concerned about stuff because I was so afraid of them getting mad at me and like hating me and stuff. I would just pretend to be exactly what they wanted me to be, and then I just disappeared. That's how I did it. If I
Oh,
did it again, I would have been more of like, this isn't right, like this needs to stop. Like I would voice my opinion a lot more, for sure.
I could see that. That's terrifying. And you were young. Like that's
Hmm.
I just missed it. Everybody's saying love Eskel and Amanda. Edna wants to know if you still talk to your dad.
Um, Technically, yeah. It's extremely rare. I talk to my mom more for sure. But yeah, I talk to my dad, especially when I'm in trouble. I made a Father's Day video talking about my polygamous father, and it was kind of harsh, talking about how he
Yeah.
neglected me, how he didn't care about me and stuff. And he came up to me and he was like, "What's wrong with you? How could you be so rude? Why you got to say all this stuff?" Like he was definitely pissed off, man. So,
Especially if it's true stuff. He's probably like, you're sharing our secrets.
exactly.
Everybody wants to know what you're doing now. Like, what are you doing now that you've been out and it's been 6 years?
Yeah, so I'm still going to college, trying to get my degree in business so I can start my own business eventually. I did an internship at Microsoft, and I'm transitioning from that right now to working in a construction industry.
Yeah.
And yeah, just been doing good. I'm trying out new places. Right now, I'm in the process of moving to Seattle, Washington, trying out a new place, seeing what it's like out there, just getting more experience with life, really.
I
So.
love that.
Mhm.
Carrie wants to know what was it like when you first left? Did it feel weird being out or was it instant relief?
No, the relief did not come as quickly as I wanted it to come. My first night leaving, I was in my sister's, sleeping on my sister's couch, and I couldn't sleep. I remember just thinking about like, I'm gonna go to hell. There's a good chance I might go to hell from all this. And it's funny though because I still believed, even though I was leaving and I knew that they were not good people and a lot of bad things about the group. I still believed that somehow they had a secret cell phone to talk to God, and I was gonna be in trouble, and because I was going against what God told them to tell me, and
Oh,
so I was definitely nervous, no
I
doubt. I
can't
was
imagine
nervous.
your whole life, all the teachings revolved around this, and then you had the
Hmm.
courage to do like what so many can't and get out. Like it's
Hmm.
mind blowing that you were able to do that, to be honest. Like so much respect. Like that,
Yeah, it
the
was crazy.
anxiety you must have had, like I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it was terrifying. And then there were some days I had to tell myself because I was like, I was preparing for 6 months. And there were some days where I was like, nope, I can't do this. And I almost went to my dad and been like, I've been hiding this money. I'm sorry. Like, I feel bad. I
Oh,
need to repent. But I would tell myself, I'd be like, hey, you have to try it. You know that this isn't right. You have to leave. But I would tell myself, if I really felt like it was a bad choice, I can come back. That's what I would tell myself to make myself not give in and, tell my dad, tell on myself, basically.
Yeah, and do it
So,
again.
yeah.
Now, do you still ever have those thoughts like I'm going to hell?
Oh no, like it
Okay.
only took probably a month or two to step out, have conversations with normal people in the world to realize that they are crazy. Like to believe the stuff that they're teaching you, you would need to be like 6 years old when they get it started on you. I swear. It is the craziest stuff. There's no way. But yeah.
Danny wants to know what helped you get through the early days.
My sisters, 100%, man.
Oh,
Having them there and being able to turn to someone and just to have someone to talk to, because I
yeah.
didn't really even know what therapy was. I probably needed therapy so bad, but I
Yeah.
didn't really know what that was. I didn't know how to go to a therapist. So my sisters were my therapists, and I would talk to them, and they encouraged me and they helped me a lot for sure. So,
Oh, I love that. Thank God you had someone. Like I think of your oldest sister who just on her own out and
yep, that would be so tough.
someone wants to know what is the difference, if there is any, between the Kingston group, the FLDS, and the AUB. AUB, did I read that right? Oh,
Oh
that's
yeah, the AUB, the Apostolic United Brethren. So all of those have their own prophet. So FLDS is Warren Jeffs. The Kingston Polygamous Group is Paul Kingston. The AUB, dang it, I'm really bad at remembering his name, but you could just, if you just Google it, then their prophet comes up. But yeah, they all have their own prophets, and they all come from the same doctrine, believing in Joseph Smith, believing in the Book of Mormon, but each prophet tweaks it a little bit. Just like how one major difference between the FLDS and the Kingston Polygamous Group is that the Kingstons will marry first cousins, half sisters, right? Half siblings. The FLDS are like, that's crazy. We would never do that. But the FLDS has this this paranoia of like when the prophet says they can't play with toys, then they won't play with their toys, like really strict rules. They couldn't procreate for a while there. Like the prophet said, no one can have kids for a while and stuff like that. So like they have that weird thing there. But also the biggest difference is they dress with clothes that they make themselves that are like very
right.
old fashioned, right?
Yeah,
So they
they look
look like
Amish almost like
yeah.
they had their
hmm
outfits all
And,
handmade.
and they live more in a community. Like all the homes are literally built within like
Yes.
this area. So
And you were
that's a
not.
big difference too, for sure.
So you were allowed to wear what you wanted and you're out kind of in the community.
Yep. A lot more like we're trying to blend in with society a little bit.
Um, and people are asking, has Warren Jeff lifted the no contact rule now?
Yeah. I've recently heard that they are able to do that now, but they're still like really picky about who can be with who because they're doing a lot of this sending away husbands to repent and stuff like that. So they're
Still.
still very strict on a lot of things.
Layla wants to know, was the members in the cult Freemasons?
Not in the Kingstons, no. I've heard that in the LDS group, some of the older prophets and stuff were, but at least in the Kingston group, there's no at least talk of any Freemasonry. Like I don't know of anything of them getting involved with that for sure. So.
Yes, Tracy, I'll post this on my YouTube as well. And Eskel actually has a YouTube channel as well. Eskel, what's your YouTube channel called?
So it's the same name as my TikTok. It's Eskel's Cult Experience.
So if you click on Eskel's name, guys, you can follow him. And then his YouTube is also linked to there. And he does go live on his YouTube as well.
Yep, every Sunday around 5 o'clock Utah time. So
Jackie wants to know, are you a Christian?
I don't think so. I'm agnostic.
Like, I'm not sure what I am.
Yeah, I'm agnostic for sure because I just don't know. I accept the fact that like I'm learning, I'm trying to figure out if I think Christ could have been like a real person or whatnot. But I love studying. I love the Christian faith. I go to church every Sunday. That's one thing that's interesting about me. I'll go to church. I love going to like different Bible studies and learning. But I just accept the fact that I don't know. I don't define who I am to any faith anymore. So I'm very much just like, I'm figuring it out for myself. I'm asking lots of questions and I'm just going to be the best person I can be with what information I have. So
I love that. Do you go to one specific church or do you just move around to different ones?
I used to. So for the longest time, I would go to the LDS church because I was in Utah, right? So they're everywhere. I just walk down the street and find one. So That was one that I would go to a lot. But I go to Jehovah's Witnesses. I go to like the New Baptist Church, or like the Anchor Church. I've been really liking that one recently, just because they have a really good Bible study system, and so I get to study with them a lot. But yeah, I don't like the idea of being like, oh, this is the right one. This is the one everyone needs to go to. Because I'm like, my purpose for churches or religion right now is to educate myself. That's what I'm going for. That's what the point is for me. But
Yeah.
I'm going to define for myself what I think the afterlife is going to be like, or what I believe in, or what I think is true.
Yeah.
So
Or if you go to hell for not having three wives or whatever.
exactly. Yep.
Somebody just asked if in your in the mom group, is the first wife always in charge, or is it equal?
Well, the first wife kind of gets a little bit more authority, I would say, because she's been with him longer. She gets a little bit. It's only because I think she has a little more control over the husband, right? The husband has 100% control. Like, he
Okay.
controls everything. The first wife, I think, is a little better at convincing him to do certain things, I suppose, because they've been with them longer. But there's
Yes.
also the whole debate about the favorite wife. Oftentimes, the wife he likes the most gets a lot of say in what they can convince him to let them do and stuff, you know? So sometimes it depends on that too.
Uh, Someone just asked. M says, "What happened to the anonymous person? Did they leave? I think they were with the FLDS."
If they're talking about on Escaping Polygamy, the
Yeah.
insider, they were from the order. They like, I know them, but they're still in the order. So I can't, like, I don't want to like say who they are or anything, because they're giving us lots of good information. Like, they've actually been super helpful. I've told them many times that it's not worth it. They should get out of there because it's a toxic place. But they keep on telling me that they feel like they can do more good being there and like sharing information and stuff. So,
So they are still there helping people.
yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. Faithless just said, "Is there any children with disabilities? And if so, how are they treated in the group?"
Yeah, there's people with disabilities. It depends. Basically, if they can get them to work, they'll do whatever they can to get them a job and still have them work and stuff. But if they can't work at all, then I think it's very similar to like the girls that can't have kids. They're just kind of forgotten. They're very much left behind. Oftentimes they're neglected, you know, because there's so many other people that they're trying to put to work, trying to make money from and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but like I've seen, you know, people that like have quite severe disabilities, and they'll still have them find something for them to do to make money, basically. So they're
Yeah.
always trying to make money off of people, no matter what. It's kind of
And you
sad.
said when you're a part of this, you sign something that gives like 20% of your salary or something, and then you have to agree that everything is
Oh,
theirs. Is that
yeah.
what it is?
It's if you read them, like my sister Amanda Ray on her YouTube channel, she's done a whole video about this, because this is a part of where I'm talking about when they are just absurdly crazy. Because first of all, if you join, you have to pay $5,000 to join, right? And then even all the people that are born, anyone in it signs what's called the 10% form, the tithing, right? Which comes from scriptures. So they sign a paper that says 10% of everything they have gets taken out of their account, that like 100% go, like that 10% goes to whatever, and they don't even know whatsoever. But then they also sign a paper that says consecration, like commitment to consecration, saying that if requested or if we need, then 100% of all your assets, all your money, everything that you own, we have ownership of it. We can make claim of it and use it and have it because you're a part of our church, our community.
Wow.
And so that gives us permission to use it all. So they don't even own their houses. They don't even own their cars. Like, all of it is tied to the church, and all the money's put in like this big old pot, right? That the leader, Paul, he has the say in what that gets spent on and used. And oftentimes you have to get permission to use your own money that you put in that pot. So it's crazy.
So what does he typically use the money for?
Oh, businesses. They're huge on businesses. They'll buy like
making new
farmland. They'll start like banks. They'll like they have a grocery store, right? And so they have all these businesses. In fact, anyone that ever wants to like visit stuff, I'm going to be posting a video about all the different businesses they have. And you can go to their grocery store. They have just a grocery store that's public, that you can go and like, they got like little 13-year-olds working at the cash register, you know, and like little kids stocking the shelves and stuff. Like, it's kind of funny.
I just have to comment. Somebody just gifted me with the name Sunny. My husband's name's Sunny.
Ooh.
I never see the name Sunny. Someone just asked Eskel, does the favorite wife have more say than the first wife? We just went over that one.
Yeah, if there is a favorite, I would say so for sure, because they can convince the husband to do more of what they want, I guess, so they get more control.
Somebody just said, thank goodness I'm Muslim. This sounds absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
this is not the way you want to live. That's why Eskel left.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh, and someone just said, what about child labor laws?
Oh, they don't care at all. The
Yeah.
moment you can start working, they'll put you to work, and they get away with a lot of the legal aspects because we're all related. You know, Utah has this law that if you're family, you can work at a younger age or something. So you're always working for your uncle or your cousin or someone. So they put you to work very young for sure.
This was actually a good question. I remember this from the FLDS that they give you homes and stuff. So someone said, how do they determine which house to give to someone when a house may be better than the next? Does that happen in your group? Like, are the homes given, like owned by the
Well,
church?
only to the leadership, you know. The leader
Oh,
has say over everything, so like he'll give homes to people if he sees fit or whatever, but it's usually, his own wives or his own family. But, anyone else that's not the direct leadership, they have to buy the home, give it to the group, and then make the payments on it. So like they don't own it, but they're the ones buying it. So the group just gets it for free. That's all.
so your
So.
mom's home that she bought the home, but then gave it to the church, so the church owns it, and she just pays them for it.
That's the way it would essentially go. So my mom, it's different because remember, my mom's dad was not in the group. So my mom's dad actually gave her a house when he passed away, right? So my mom got this house from her dad, and instantly it didn't get to go in her name. The church took it and put it in their name, and she is still essentially paying rent or paying something on the house. And so she never gets to own it. She never gets to have it herself. What I'm even confused about is she says that she's making living payments or like home payments that she shouldn't be because she owns the house, but they still make her pay something. So I don't even know what all that is. But in essence, they just try to take as much from you as they possibly can.
Just own
That's
it
the bottom
all.
line.
Would they ever take a family out of a home and give it to someone else?
Um, Well, not well. They'll do that, but what they would do is like if let's say they're not making as much money as they used to, they'll give that house to someone else who could make the payments or buy it, and then they'll have that family go to a smaller, cheaper home oftentimes. So that'll happen a lot, but they won't just take it from you and then just be like, sorry, I live on the streets, I guess. If you're still technically a member, they will put you somewhere, but you can live in this tiny little shack and they won't care. They'll just give you whatever.
And
But
someone wants to know, how young do the girls and boys marry in your group? I say your group, it's not yours anymore, but the group you were.
yeah. Well, the youngest I've personally seen is getting actually married at 14 years old for the girl and 15 years old for the boy. That's the youngest I've seen. I've heard of marriages or like, do you know what being betrothed is? Like
Yeah.
a betrothed thing? Yeah, I've heard of people being betrothed as young as like 7, 8 years old, but they won't actually get married until they're like 14, 15. But
Wow.
they will be assigned to their husband as young as 8 or 9 years old.
They're
So
just
it can
babies
be crazy.
themselves.
Hmm.
Yeah, everybody's saying, oh, the poor kids. Yeah, that is crazy. Is there food stamps and benefits fraud
Oh
um,
yeah,
going
big
on?
time. In fact, it's extremely illegal. I think this is why, because the government doesn't do much about polygamy, and I understand from the sense that like, okay, they can't. It's really hard to necessarily if the girl's like, oh, I want to have kids with this guy that's already married. Like, I don't know how you can stop that. But what the government could go after is the fact that there's all these wives with like 10 kids getting a bunch of government assistance, food stamps, welfare, all these things that have a husband that sometimes is like in the leadership, so has access to millions of dollars, and their
Right.
wives are still on food stamps. Like, that doesn't
But
make
the
any
husbands
sense.
aren't.
Yep.
So do the husbands have their own house somewhere, or do they just have the homes their wives are in and go eat from each home to home?
Just the homes that their wives are in, and they just go
Okay.
from home to home. So
For anyone that's just joining, we've had some people asking, where you're from. So this is Eskel. Eskel was in the Kingston. Do you call it the Kingston group?
Well, that's kind of like the public name. They have four names though to confuse people, I feel like.
Oh.
Uh,
Okay.
mhm,
So he escaped from the Kingston group, which is like a branch of like the FLDS.
mhm.
The order, yeah. When
Yep.
the women are assigned to marry and the boys or men are the same age, are they, oh, are the men or the boys the same age as the women? Or is it like a 14-year-old girl and like a 50-year-old man?
Yeah, the guys are always older. Like I've never seen them
Oh.
be the same age or the guy being younger. The guys are always older. It can vary. The biggest gap I've seen is an 18-year-old marrying a 39-year-old. So that I've seen, and so they do have extreme gaps for sure. But it just depends. Like it's such a they don't have any guidelines on that though. They're like you can be as old as you want and marry as young as you want. They don't have any guidelines for that. So it
I
can
think
get
we just
crazy.
had someone join who may be in a polygamy group. Johnny Jackie just said the world is underpopulated, so nothing wrong with breeding many women.
Wow.
We'll just do a little blocking of that one there. That's
Mhm.
just gross.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we
That
get a
does
lot of
sound
fun.
like an order member, man. Order members really, they think that populating the earth is like the biggest goal in the whole world. It's crazy.
Oh.
But
Someone just asked, do boys get kicked out because there aren't enough girls, like in Warren Jeff's kind of cult?
nope, not particularly because they'll just put those boys to work. They have them work a lot and they just get all their money. So,
I suppose.
mhm.
What about the 15-year-old boy that got married? Did he marry older or was it a younger girl or same age?
No, the one that was my friend that I saw got married at 15, he married a 14-year-old. So she was even younger than him.
Patty wants to know what is the youngest aged father that you saw in the group?
Probably my friend, that 15-year-old, because remember, he got married at 15 to a 14-year-old, and the very next year they had a baby. So he was only 16 years old,
Oh
and
my
she
God.
must have been 15 or
15.
around there. So,
Would that be the youngest that you've seen have a baby would be 15?
yep. For me personally, I suppose there may have been other ones that I don't know about, but for me personally, actually seeing that, that's the youngest that I've experienced.
Someone just asked, is there an equivalent to the keep sweet for males?
Um,
Do you know what I mean when I say keep sweet? Like the Warren Jeffs thing?
well, that's just the saying that they have, right?
Yeah. Like that
Hmm.
the women have to keep sweet. They have to,
Hmm.
speak a certain
Keep
way, dress
sweet
a
and
certain way,
obey,
act a certain
right?
way. Is there
They
like something for you men that you have to follow as well?
well, they definitely do push loyalty, and they have this saying. I can't remember the exact saying, but it comes from certain scripture where it's like loyalty for hierarchy above blood. Basically saying like the man above you is more important to be loyal and obedient to them than even your own brother or your own,
Oh my God.
mom or family or whatever. So,
Oh.
mhm,
Alexis asked if your mother's still in the group, and yes, she is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Oh my gosh. So
Hmm.
for you in the group, I know that like you wore your own clothing and it was a little bit different. So I know in the Duggars documentary they talk about the IBLP church where they weren't allowed to drink or do drugs, they weren't allowed to have birth control, they weren't allowed to dance. Like did you have the similar rules?
Well, they were really strict on, of course, drugs and alcohol and coffee. A lot of the same as the LDS church. And they're very strict on that. And then the only thing that's different, I think, is they're extremely strict on, no hand holding, no flirting with girls, no pairing off at all. Like you're not even allowed to be alone with someone of the opposite sex if you don't have like parental supervision or like things like that. So they're very strict about all that, and then they just go straight to marriage. Like they literally, once you're engaged, you can finally hold hands, and then on your wedding days when your first kiss should be, and then anything goes from there. So
And so can you kiss and hold hands in public if you're married?
yeah, once
Okay.
you're married, that's okay. But even when you're engaged to be married, then you're not supposed to kiss. You can only hold hands, and they're very strict about a lot of that. So
Oh, someone just said, what if a wife cheated on her husband and the group found out? What would the punishment be?
So that's
Exile?
happened before. A lot of the times they just keep it secret because remember, they don't care that much the type of person that they are. They care more of what their reputation is. So when that happens, they oftentimes just ignore it and pretend it never happened. And as long as the woman will tie back to her husband, they'll let it be. They'll let it go. But there has been a time when this happened and the girl got pregnant with someone
Oh,
that wasn't her husband, and they just pretended like it was her husband's kid, and
oh,
they never addressed it. They never like shared custody or anything. They just had the husband raise the kid as their own, and they just pretend like nothing happened. It's kind of crazy,
oh
but
my gosh. What about somebody just said, what about abuse? Is it tolerated? Like if a husband's beating his wife, is that tolerated? And is like spanking and all of that in your Kingston group tolerated?
yeah, to some extent, it's funny because they do teach that like the man is over the wife, and so they have full authority, and the woman has to be submissive to the man. They don't necessarily teach like physical abuse to like keep them in line, but they do teach physical abuse to the children. They teach that raising your kids with the rod is the way that God meant it to be, and so they definitely are very abusive to the kids, and I've heard of some really harsh treatments that kids have gone through and a lot of neglect. The neglect really just comes from having so many kids, though. I don't
Yeah.
even think they're trying to neglect the kids, but it happens a lot. And then the abuse is actually like they'll have church meetings about how you're supposed to beat your kids into submission and raise them by the rod, and that's the way God intended. And so it definitely is pretty harsh.
It sounds like the same thing for the IBLP church from the Duggars documentary. Like they talked
Mhm.
explicitly about that called the Pearl method. It was from this book where you had to do like blanket training and like it was horrendous what they do to their children.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
who would do this? Was it your mom or your dad that would spank or use rods? Or did
Well,
they
it
use
was both
rods?
of them, but the women, even the moms, are kind of scared to punish the boys. I rarely ever got a beating from my mom. When I was in trouble, she would tell my dad, and my dad would take care of me.
Okay.
But when it came to my sisters, my mom still punished my sisters as harshly as she wanted to. But for some reason, they're a little bit afraid of guys, so
Probably
the
because
women
you're
don't.
the way to heaven. Like a man is how you
Hmm.
get to heaven, so they probably didn't want to spank or beat their male children.
Something like that. Yeah.
Oh, Eskel.
Mhm.
Um,
Crazy.
is the Kingston group in Utah?
Yep. Like 99% of them are in Utah. They're trying to make a little group up in Idaho and one up in Pennsylvania, but it's only got like two families, so like 20 people out in those areas. But
Okay.
yeah.
Are you
But
close to the Warren Jeff sector?
yeah, you could say it's like a 2 hour drive because
Okay.
Warren Jeff's compound and their group is down south, kind of by the border of Utah and Arizona. And the Kingston group is right by Salt Lake City, so near the top of Utah.
Okay.
So,
And
mhm.
you said that the sister wives are the AUB side? Is
No, the AUB is another branch off. That's a whole nother group. They live in
Oh,
Bluffdale, Utah. That's in between. So the FLDS is near the bottom, the Kingston Polygamists are near the top of Utah, and then the AUB group is near the middle area.
okay. So the sister wives and Cody and that whole show, they're just polygamists. They're not in those groups.
Oh, so sorry. Yeah, when you're talking about Cody, they originated from the AUB. Yeah, that's where they got
Oh.
started. Hmm.
But so the AUB, they don't have to stay there or they left for other reasons. I can't remember.
Well, they're no longer associated with AU. Like the AUB group doesn't like Cody, because they feel like he really tarnished their name and like publicized
Oh.
them when they didn't want to be publicized and stuff. So he definitely left the group and kind of went and did his own thing. But yeah.
Uh, Josh says, just remember, people, this isn't all polygamists.
Um. Wait, the people we're talking about, they're all polygamists.
Yeah, well, I think he's saying not all polygamists are like this, maybe, but
Oh,
I don't know.
interesting.
Like, yeah, I think in order to be like the polygamists follow this religion, right? This is why they are polygamists. So if you're
All
just
the ones
talking,
I know of, I don't know of any independent polygamists that are
yeah,
happily living polygamy that doesn't have this, like, eternal salvation on the line,
right.
persuading them to live that way.
I mean,
So,
maybe there's guys out there that were like, you know what, I'd like to have three wives, and went off and did that, but I've never heard of that. So I
yeah.
think this is all polygamists, but I don't know.
Hmm.
Oh, Ethical non-monogamy. Wait, is that a thing? I don't know. I don't know, guys. Who is the favorite wife in your family?
Well, I'm pretty sure it was my mom, but of course I'm biased, so I don't know for sure. But I do remember certain things like the fact that there were multiple times he came over more than just every 3 days, right? And how there was certain family trips that we got to go on that the other families didn't get to go on. So I'm like, it kind of looked that way to me, but who knows?
Everybody's blown up the comments saying it's called ethical. Hold on. Ethical non-monogamy. And I guess, yeah, open relationships. I guess that would be polygamy. I wasn't even thinking of that because lots of people have open relationships and have like more than one person in their relationship, I guess. So yeah, I didn't even
Yeah, and I
think of
get to
that.
me, I'm like, if kids aren't involved, then I suppose there's probably a way you could make it work. But when you've got 30 kids, then you're doing something wrong. I'm sorry. There's just no way.
Yeah, maybe that side of it. Yeah, I guess when
Hmm.
we think of polygamy, we think of like the religion that has,
Hmm.
100 kids and whatever. And I think what
Yeah.
they're speaking of, I called it open relationship. I guess it's not open. It's just more than one person you're in love with. So I think that would be different because you're not breeding, trying to have all these kids. So I guess the type of polygamy must be different that we're speaking of, I
Hmm.
guess. I know a TikTok family who are polygamous, but not polygamous. Two wives, one husband. Okay, yeah. And polyamory? Am I saying that wrong? Polygamy
Is
is.
that when there's two husbands and one wife?
Oh, maybe. I'm not sure.
I've heard of it. I don't remember the exact word for it, but
Okay, yeah. Somebody just said polyam is the sexuality, not the religion or the religious part.
oh.
Somebody says, is there ever any conflicts between the Kingston FLDS and any other groups?
Oh yeah, they're all trying to steal each other's women. That's for
Oh,
sure.
oh no, because there's not enough.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
So,
and the Kingston group has done service projects for the FLDS to try and like, weave their way in a little bit and get to meet the women and stuff. So they do associate with each other for sure. But
okay. Uh, I'm going to say this wrong, you guys. Misandry is one wife and multiple husbands. I'm going to say that wrong. I totally probably pronounced that wrong, but I see that. Are the wives allowed to have multiple husbands?
no, of course not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
here's one thing that does get a little complicated, and they don't teach this in the group, but like we know that this happens. A lot of the sister wives, that share a husband, there's often times where I guess they do like what you could call like threesomes or foursomes or whatever. So in essence, it's been kind of talked about women being, I guess, bi, you could say, and that's
Okay.
somewhat acceptable, I suppose, because they're supposed to love their sister wives. So like the women technically is supposed to love their other wives as well, because they don't just say your husband has multiple wives. For the wives, even the women, they have multiple wives. Those other sister wives are
Yeah.
their wives. So
So,
yeah.
do you mean that when I don't know how much we can say on here because we're on a live, but when they get together, it could be with the husband with all the wives?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, I did not expect that.
Mm-hmm.
I would have thought there'd be like jealousy and stuff.
I know. And here's the thing. I'm not saying all of them do that, but that's something that, they don't preach that, oh, you can't do that type of thing. So
Okay.
it's just, they don't even have a specific doctrine or rule for that. It's pretty obvious that that happens with some people in the
Someone
group.
just said, can it be just the wives without the husband?
Oh, I actually don't know. That's a good question. I've never asked, I guess. So I don't know. That's a
Yeah, I
good
can't. I
question.
can't imagine in that kind of religion because you need the man to get to heaven. So
Hmm.
maybe
Yeah.
not.
Well, here's the thing. They would never let two girls get married without a husband. That's for sure.
Okay.
But like, I don't know if they'd let, two sister wives sleep with each other without the husband,
Right.
potentially. But who
Um.
knows?
Oh, I just missed the question. What freedoms or things do you enjoy the most since being out of the order?
Ooh, I think first of all, freedom of just like being able to go wherever I want and believe whatever I want. Like Swearing. I took the longest time to ever get myself to say a swear word.
I
And
love
finally,
that.
I've been like trying to get more comfortable with it. And it's so exhilarating and like just freeing to feel like there's no reason why I can't swear. I've waited my whole life to swear because they taught me not to, but there's no real reason not to, you know? So things
So now
like
you're
that. And
dropping F-bombs.
yeah, and being able to live wherever I want. Because all of growing up, you have to live where the church is, right? And they only have,
Oh,
at the time for me, they only had the church in Utah. So it's like, you're so limited on where you can work, where you can live. You can't live by the ocean or on an island or just, have beautiful scenery. You have
yeah.
to stay in Utah. So that's definitely been a great, like, wonderful experience for me. That's why I love traveling.
Punky wants to know if you've now tried alcohol and Coke,
What?
Coca-Cola.
Oh, of course I've tried Coca-Cola, soda pop. I actually tried alcohol for the first time this year because I did want to experience it and just kind of like, I'm still, I'm so unexperienced that I don't want to just dive into it. But I no longer believe that you drink alcohol, you're gonna go to hell.
Yeah.
So now I'm just like, I know that this is something people do socially. This is
Yeah.
something that's worth experiencing.
What did you
So.
try?
So the first thing I ever tried was just some like if you know what Mike's drinks are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like 5% alcohol or something. I've tried like a whiskey sour, things like that. So
Okay.
mhm.
Have
Yeah.
you been able to date yet?
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. I could do a whole video on dating. My dating experience on the outside. So it's been awesome because like before I never could even hold a girl's hand. And so it's been like super exhilarating experience meeting like amazing women and being able to get to know them on a more intimate level. But it's also been crazy because I have this constant fear and like I have this rule that by the second date I have to tell them about my polygamous background because I'm always worried about what they're gonna think and stuff. But then I have this warped perception of women, because always being grown up, they're very sexist. They're always about like, oh, the man's in control, the man's this and that.
Right.
So it's like I know that I don't want to be sexist, but I fully admit that my whole upbringing, I was taught to be a very sexist person, to have a
Right.
sexist mindset. So I'm trying to be better about that. And I think, as long as I'm open and honest with the girls that I'm dating, they've been super helpful. I've been able to learn a lot from them. And my sisters, of course. My sisters are a huge help. I call them all the time and be like, is this okay? Or like, how do I tell my girlfriend this or whatever. So
That's
it
got to be
definitely.
such a huge mind shift. Like, no, I
Mhm.
don't control women and I have to let them, do whatever. Do you find that
Exactly.
you date women that are kind of more meek and mild, or are you going like, do you find you're dating women that are more outspoken now?
Well, at first, I did find myself dating girls that were almost resembled a little bit of the women in the group because I dated girls that were very submissive, that were just kind of like let you do whatever you want and stuff. But
Yeah.
now, lately, I've loved dating women that are more independent because it's so amazing seeing this people that like these women that know that they have no limits. The world we're in is like it's their playground. They can do whatever they want. They can accomplish what they want. There are no limits. And to me, that has been so much more exciting and so much more meaningful and enjoyable. So that's what I've definitely been more interested in lately. So,
And you've been out for 6 years. So what's your longest relationship been?
well, my longest relationship was actually my first one though, because it was weird. My very first time dating a girl, I thought I was gonna marry her, because of my mindset. I was like,
Yes.
we're gonna get
You're
married.
kidding.
We're gonna have 10 kids. We're gonna like do all these things and stuff. And so I was in a relationship with her for an entire year and some months, and then I realized that like I'm just recreating the cult outside of the cult. Like I don't want
Oh.
this. I want to actually, figure out who I am. I want to date people and experience things. So it ended up breaking off and being totally different after that. But yeah, I've
That
definitely
would be the
dated quite a few
longest.
people. Had some crazy experiences for sure.
Everyone wants to know if you still talk to your mom.
Yep, I still talk to my mom. She's very understanding. I don't understand my mom very much because I don't know why she's still there, but she still reaches out to me and she's very understanding about me and my beliefs. So it's been
Yeah.
nice.
Now, in your group, were you allowed to watch TV and have cell phones and things like that?
Yeah,
Okay.
they aren't very strict on that stuff. I didn't get my first cell phone until I got my first car because that's when I was like driving places and needed to call more.
Right.
So I was definitely older than I think a lot of people that get their first cell phone. But no, we watched movies. So I think we watched horrible movies. My dad was really into horror shows. So like
Oh,
I watched the Saw series when I was like 12 years old
oh
and
my
like it
gosh.
still haunts me to this day. I've seen some
That's
scary stuff.
hilarious. See, we
Yeah.
don't expect that because we all only know kind of the Warren Jeff side from like Eat or Keep Sweet and Pray and all those shows. And even
Yep.
Escaping Polygamy.
Yeah.
Someone just said, are there a lot of people in your group that you know of that want to leave but are just too scared?
Oh yeah, that's what we call the fence sitters. They basically don't believe in anything in the church, but they stay because their money's tied up with them, their families are all there, like they're worried about getting a job on the outside and surviving. There's a lot of people like that for sure.
Do they have their own bank account or do they have to put their paycheck in like a group thing?
Yeah, it's all in the group thing because there's a Kingston bank system that they have with all of their members' money in it, and all of their loans are in it, all of their house deeds are in it. You know, like that's where they keep all of their stuff.
Oh my.
So.
What do they call you now as an outsider of the group? Is there like a name? Are you like a,
Well, I'm an ex-order member and I'm a son of perdition, like an apostate, you know.
oh, okay.
Someone
Apostle?
who knew the true signs of God but denied them. Like that's the worst thing you could possibly be, like what the Bible describes as the worst you can possibly be is an apostate and a son of perdition. And that's what they call me. So,
Oh.
yeah.
So when somebody leaves, like you were young, so that's different. But when your mom left, she just has to leave all of her money in the bank. Like she can't go to the bank and say, I want to take some money out and then leave.
Well, she kind of was able to because um when you're an adult, then you can still go to it and like if it's above a certain amount, then yeah, you have to get permission from the one above you. But for her, what she did it pretty smart because like she packed all of her stuff, got everything planned, and she was setting some money aside. And then I believe on the last day, right as she was leaving, she went to the bank before anyone knew she was leaving the group, right? Goes to the bank, asks for as much money as they would let her get out without having to get permission from her husband, and then took that. So she was able to get some, but you couldn't just go and be like, "Give me my whole life savings." There's no way they wouldn't
Oh
let you
my
do that.
gosh.
But
I can't even imagine. And Queen Bee asked, has anyone ever tried to sue or fight for their money and stuff back?
oh yeah, and there's been a couple of cases that have won. There's been people that have had like $50,000 because they've been, were in the group till they were like 25 or 30, have a huge savings, and they leave and they're not giving them their money, so they do get lawyers. They do have to go through the whole process. But I've heard of many of them that have won, so you
Oh,
can fight it. There's also been some that have lost though because if you don't save your paper documents, you don't have much of an argument or much evidence to
right.
win.
To
But if you do
prove that.
save that stuff, you can win it. So
Would they let you back in if you wanted to go back?
me, no. There's like basically no way. Technically, they preach that anyone can repent, right? So sure, if I paid $5,000, if I gave them all my stuff, if I convinced my dad I was a changed person and I had meetings with the prophet, technically maybe, but all the things that I've done, all the videos I've posted, expressing how I truly feel what I believe, they would never fully accept me back.
Right.
But technically, maybe there could somewhat be a process. If I was a woman, a lot more likely. All I would have to do is marry someone. If I was a girl and I married a man that was high up in the church, they would take me back in a heartbeat. But as a man, they don't care very much. Like they wouldn't put much attention to it at all. So
Oh my gosh. Eskel, this has been another like fantastic interview. I absolutely love talking to you. I think you are such a fantastic human. And I just
thank
really
you.
appreciate you taking the time to come on with me.
For sure, yeah. This was a lot of fun. I love all the questions.
Would
It's
you want to do it
awesome.
again?
For sure. Yeah, let's
Okay,
plan
we are
another
on
one.
it.
Yeah.
We'll chat off and we'll see what works for you and when you want to kind of go on. Everybody,
Sweet.
if you are interested, hit Eskel's name and follow. He's got his own TikTok account, of course, and it has his YouTube. He's on
Mhm.
YouTube and does live.